Alright, today on the Frozen Fly we'll be making ourselves a general minnow pattern for pike. This one will actually include a rattle. To start off, we are going with a TMC 8089 size 2. The rattle we will be using is just a general 4mm glass rattle. Our thread is another just general white thread. I'll be using two different kinds of white thread. One is a spun white thread, and then another will be a just a flat thread. The flat thread doesn't really matter on color because you'll be covering it again with the white. So we'll go ahead and tie in about an eye length behind, or about an eye length in, and start wrapping back. Trim off our tag. So run it back to about the point of the hook. Do a couple of real close wraps down at the base, and then do kind of another set of looser, or not loose, but spread out wraps going back up. Right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to build up a thread base, so when we tie in our rattle isn't going to go anywhere. It's not going to rotate, it's not going to slide out, it's going to stay with the fly. So you're trying to kind of cover up the whole bit of thread, or the whole bit of the hook shank, with the thread. So I went ahead and did some really rough wraps down towards the back. Now this one is a 4mm rattle, so it's quite large. 4mm doesn't sound big, but it really is. So I'm going to do a couple of really loose wraps just to try to keep it up. Rotate it down. Another thing too, when you tie these in, you'll notice I actually was doing it backwards. If you look carefully, one end will have a bulge, the other will be straight. You always want the bulge end to be towards the back of your fly. So I'm going to do this again here. Do a couple of wraps, let it slide underneath. These can be really tricky to tie in. They're actually quite difficult. Depending on what size you have, it can be really difficult to tie in, partially because they want to break. They are made out of glass. So due to the angle of my camera, it looks like it's not straight, but it is straight on that hook. It's still wanting to roll. So I'm going to do just a couple of figure 8 wraps around it here. Those figure 8s definitely helped hold it in. So now I am going to get a piece of flat thread. Another thing that could help you is using a piece of, or using some wax. And so I'm just going to take this thread, this floss almost, just use this and tie it in. And the reason you use this is because it has more surface area. so it is going to help kind of lock it in a little bit more. I would recommend, unless if you're just starting to use rattles, use more of a size they call some like a nano. I would recommend more of something along that size. But if you're tying huge bodied pike flies and stuff like that, the bigger the rattle, obviously the more sound you're going to get. I did not set this up previous to the video, so I'm just going to use the spool without a bobbin here. These are great for helping build up bulkier body too. Just remember, you want the rattle to be on the side that's going to be down. So the back of the minnow is going to be up top, and this is going to be the belly. You always want the rattle on the belly because it's going to add weight, and the weight is going to want to make it roll. So we're just adding some nice flat threads just to help lock it in a little bit more. Any flat thread, waxed, unwaxed, anything will do, because we're going to be covering it with a resin, with UV, just to help make sure it's locked in well. Tie it off, trim it close. So now this is locked in really well. So I'll take then my solar res thin, and right where the shank meets the rattle, right in here, is where I'll add the glue. That, and also some on the rattle side. I'll try to kind of keep some of it away from the shank. I mean, I'll add a little bit onto the shank. I want most of it to be kind of on the rattle, and that area kind of in between the rattle and the shank. This is the UV thin. I don't know if I said that or not. So I got a pretty good glob. Friend the bodkin. Take that and help kind of spread it around, smooth it out. Now if you look, it's a little bit cockeyed like this. Obviously that's not ideal. I just didn't take enough care when I was putting it together to make sure that was going to be alright. But that's perfectly fine, because what will happen is it will actually catch water and cause almost a little bit of a dodging action. So it's all kind of smoothed out. Hit it with the UV. Get it nice and dry. Excuse my hands, I got that manual rotation rotation lock. I don't have anything that's up above here. So add some more threads so that ain't glue will get covered. And then we will go ahead and start actually building kind of the fly. So I'm using bucktail. This is wild northern Michigan bucktail. I'm a deer hunter, so I have decent amounts of it laying around. I'm looking throughout the tail. Some deer tails it'll be at the tip. Most it will be towards the base of the tail. I'm looking for the longest fibers, the longest hairs I can possibly get in the white. So take this and check this out, see how this looks. Doesn't look too bad. I'm getting probably two pencils, maybe 3 now, probably a pencil and a half, maybe 2 of bucktail, white bucktail. Get it all together here. So cut off a piece of the white bucktail. Go ahead and get a brush. I found one of these dog slickers, and the nice thing is it's got a button here, pushes out, and you can get all the dubbing. So then you have your own dubbing. So I now take that brush and just kind of brush out any of the under hair, any of the short fur, anything like that. Sometimes I'll go back through with a toothbrush with a piece of Velcro and brush it out and use a little Velcro just to try to help pull out some of the real short fibers. Because the reason is, if you have the short fibers in there, what will happen is the thread will grab onto those and it won't lock down the whole clump. So you'll actually lose some of your longer fibers, and obviously you don't want that. So we're putting it down underneath. Some people find it easier to go like this. I'm going to go like this so you guys can see it this way. So basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to get about the middle of the clump to go through the hook here, laying it down. And then what I do is I pull it up, I do a wrap to collect, and then I cinch it down. That's, came undone. This is a method of tying wings on caddis that I find works well for helping layer some stuff. You don't have to do it. Basically what you would do is you would loop it around and pull it down. I'll show you guys on the top side. This side I'll show you guys just how to cinch it down. So you just take it, do a pinch so it doesn't roll. Just pulling all my fibers down, make sure everything looks right. Add one real long hair, get straight out. So I actually grabbed it, put it back in because obviously I like the longer fibers. I'm actually bringing this down the shank a ways to help keep all my fibers pushed down into kind of, you know, a nice slender profile. Now I'm going to take my trimming scissors, trim her way around the eye so I have my eye back. Wrap back up, help push all these hairs back down. Alright. back up. So now we got this. One thing you want to look for too is on the top. This is really flat right here. This whole surface, it's almost like a shelf. That's really a key thing you're looking for. That knows you're doing really good if you get that. If not, you can still work with it. I've had it before, you know, where I've had the hair come up on top. Sometimes it doesn't matter. I mean, if the hair did come on top, I mean, you just lay it on top. But when you get that where it's almost like a shelf, it makes your other materials really easy to place. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking some Crystal Flash. This is kind of like a greenish silver, or greenish yellow, or I think it's called pearlescent. That's what I'm thinking of. I think that's what they would it be considered as. I'm not really sure. I've had it forever. So what I'm doing is I'm getting just a hair less than the tail. I kind of want it to be nice, pretty dense, pretty thick. Because this is kind of the silver sides of the minnow. So I'm just basically at the tail with just a few fibers. Tie it in on that side. I just loosely got it tied in just to help hold it. It's wanting to run away on me here. Try to not let it. Come on. Perfect. So now we got this tied in. We'll do the same on the other side. I'm just going to quick skip over the other side. Alright, so basically I've just tied in and secured the close side of the Crystal Flash. I'm just helping build up a little bit of a taper here at the head. And now I'm taking some black bucktail. And this will get laid right over top. A little bit more. So I'm just kind of looking to see how it's going to sit, how it's going to look. I'd like to get this a little bit thicker on the top, down the tail. But we'll see how it looks once I secure it in here. So I'm just checking for length. I'm getting right about just a hair less than the rest of the tail. Secure it on top here. Now you'll notice looks awful here with the black with the white thread on the black material. You'll be able to hide that here. In a sec. Basically what I'm trying to make sure I get, so I'm making sure I'm getting a bit of separation between the crystal flash and the black bucktail. Simple enough. Just cut that off. I cut that off at a 45 taper like this to help make a little bit more of a head. Some people will keep these butts. I'm trying to think if there's anything I got coming up that I could use these for. Nothing, so I'm actually going to throw them out. They can be useful for a bunch of different small things, like eyes for spinning deer hair bodies and stuff like that. So basically what I got right now is this. And basically what happens is that rattle helps push down this belly a little bit more, so that when it's swimming, what will happen is it'll push up, push down, push up, push down, push up, push down, which helps give it a little more action. So I'm going to go ahead and start making a bit of a head here. I got a little too much hair up in front to where I won't be able to get a good whip finish. So going with my thinner scissors here. And basically all that I'm doing is I'm just trying to get this secured enough, because we'll be gluing on eyes, which will cover up these threads. Do a whip finish. Now, it is completely doable to fish it like this, but the added realism, I'm taking a little bit of Solarez Thin, just applying a real kind of thin layer to help lock everything in, make sure nothing gets slick, slips out, nothing of the sorts. Just just gonna spin this around kind of wildly here, just to kind of let that smooth out. Hit it with UV. Still just a little tacky, which is actually a good thing. So now we will go ahead and go to our eyes. These are a 10mm, I believe they're called 10mm living eyes. These ones are earth. So I take the two. The nice thing is that it's got a little bit of tackiness. These have a little bit of glue by themselves, but then they also have a bit of tack from the UV. Sometimes it's still a little difficult, like this one is a little difficult, so I take just a little bit of high tack wax and get just a little bit on my bobbin here. I put just a little bit onto the back of these eyes just to help get them to really stick on while I'm gluing here. You can use your fingers. Just with some waxes. This Loon's got this high tack swax, they call it. It's kind of nice because you can sit there and rub it between your fingers, and it'll be sticky, but then once you rub it enough, all the stickiness will be gone. So I just kind of get these all lined up, positioned the way I want them to. Try to get them even and straight. Try to get all of this positioned in a way that I like it. And then I take Solarez's Flex and I really goop it up. It's better to do it in one shot. If you try, you can do it in multiple passes, depending on how the fly is. Sometimes it's kind of nice with these because you can actually like pull the fibers down while you're making the head, and then when you glue the head, the fibers will stay the way that you had them when you were holding them with the glue. So I really put a good layer of it. I try to do kind of a thin layer on the eyes themselves just to help any scratches and stuff like that. Make sure you get you want to really make sure you get behind the eyes. You want to fill that void in between, or underneath, like the eyes, and between the eyes. So that's one continuous head. You'll definitely go through some glue, but the results of doing it look so nice. See just how much glue you kind of use. You use quite a bit. Go back to my bodkin here, clean it off from the wax. off this application nozzle. So what I'm just kind of doing is you have so much glue that you'll get some high spots. So if I get a high spot, what I do is I just kind of roll the high spot into a spot that's a little bit lower, and I look for any holes around the eyes where the glue hasn't quite seeped to yet. You kind of use your bodkin to move the material around until so if there's a spot where there's not glue that you want glue, you just move a little bit of the glue over with your bodkin, and then you just kind of rotate it and let it sit for a second. What will happen is it will move around and even out on that spot. So I'm just making this glue go all the way around, just behind the eyes, in front of the eyes, in between, all around. And I'm kind of moving it kind of fast right now just to get a really good look quick. And it's looking pretty even all across. So now I hit it with the UV. Now this flex formula is where this loon light comes in really handy. I've always had issues curing it. This stuff really needs a good amount of time to cure. It's because you have so much, it's kind of like air drying. First the top layer will dry and then the bottom layers. So what I always do is I use the UV light to get a good cure on it, especially, you know, the upper half and stuff like that. And then once I feel like it's cured some, what I'll do is I'll go and I'll stick it in a window and let it finish curing that way. Give it a good long while so that the whole thing is cured. And basically then what that allows for is so that you can sit there and squish this whole head without worrying about any glue breaking or anything like that. It's really effective for these pike fly patterns just because pike are so destructive that you burn through flies quite quickly. You break off the artificial eyes, it tears. With some of them, the heads are so hard that the pike can actually use it for leverage to get off your line. So with this flex, it allows for a little bit of movement. When a pike hits it, it feels, I guess, more natural. Usually though, if they hit it, they've got a hook in their mouth, so it's not going to feel natural for very long. But I've always liked it just because of the fact that it flexes. It's almost like a silicone. So this is what you wind up with. If you listen, it's got a little bit of a rattle to it. It's a nice lightweight fly. It doesn't sink like a stone. It's great for, you know, that shallow spring water. Stays pretty tight together and while you're stripping it, and then it pushes itself out, so you get a fluctuating pattern, pretty natural fluctuating pattern. Holds up real strong, real cheap materials, not many materials. So all in all, a really productive, really good fly, especially, you know, if you're just kind of getting into the pike thing, if you're just getting into the tying. This is a fly that, you know, you can use for bass, pike. It's a really, and overall it's just a really nice fly. So if I don't catch you guys next in the woods or on the water, hopefully I'll catch you guys next time here on the Frozen Fly. Have a good one.